want to welcome everyone to the National Press Conference to Save Dyett High School. My name is Jonathan Stiff. I'm the National Coordinator for the Alliance for Educational Justice. And we're here to stand with the Dyett and the hunger strikers. 17 days ago, 12 parents began a journey for justice, or in a fight that has been decades in the making to save Dyett High School in the community of Brownsville. When we understand we understand that Dyett is an epicenter of a national struggle to reclaim the promise of education, which is the promise of justice, which is the promise of democracy. We're here because we believe that public education is a right, and it's a right that should be federally protected and guaranteed to all. So we're here appealing to Secretary Arne Duncan and President Obama today to intervene to save Dyett High School. Again, the importance of the struggle is that it's not just in Chicago. There's Dyetts in every community across this country. There are parents who are hungry for justice, just like these two hunger strikers here are hungry for justice, and have been organizing day in and day out to save the schools, to save and transform public education. And that, again, that importance of that fight is reflected in the lineup and who we have here standing in solidarity with the Dyett hunger strikers. And so I'm not going to belabor the moment anymore, but get us to our lineup. And so, first of all, I want to bring to speak April Stoker, who is a hunger striker. She's a parent from Mollison in Chicago and a lifelong resident of Brownsville. She understands very clearly that when you close a school, you kill a community. And that she's been on the front lines for years, having to fight to keep Mollison open about 2 or 3 times, and has joined the hunger strike because she understands the importance of education in schools to our young people in our community. So without any further ado, let's welcome April.
Thank you, Jonathan. You kind of stole my speech a little bit. First, I'd like to say thank you guys for having us, and thanks for coming out and supporting us. As Jonathan said, my name is April Stoker. I am a mother of 3 adults. I have 3 grandchildren. One who attends Mollison Elementary, which Jonathan mentioned. I fought against 2 school closing attempts on that particular school. So that was probably like 2008-09 when I got involved in the struggle. That's when I really became aware of the attack on our black and brown communities as far as education goes. I never thought that in 2015, if you had told me back in 2009 that I would be hungry for 17 days, fighting for what is an equal right for my grandchildren and the other children in my community, you couldn't have told me that in a million years. But it's time for the scab to be pulled off this thing. I stand strong with my strikers. This has been quite an emotional fight for us. When it comes down to, I have 2 of my other hunger strikers, 3 of them that have gotten sick during this fight. Not in the best of health, but they stand strong with us. And we got 2 young ladies, Anna Jones, Jeanette Rahm. They have children that are graduating from Mollison. Do you know that these people will have to send their kids 16 miles from home just to attend a public school? Now, you have to ask yourself, where's that right at? Do you understand the dangers of children traveling that far to school? These are young ladies. So, with this fight, I mean, we've been to jail several times. We've tried to appeal to Rahm on so many occasions. This is our community. It's been taken hostage, and it's time to let it go. This is ours. We're going to fight for it. I would say to the last dying breath, we're in this. It's not a game. We're standing strong, and we just need support, and we appreciate the support that we've been getting nationally, locally, and we are fighting for a Dyett to remain in our community. And we're going to do whatever is necessary to keep this school and having an open enrolled school in our community. So I just want to say I'm hungry, but I'm not really hungry for food. I'm hungry for justice. I'm hungry for justice for my grandbabies, for all of our kids in the community. I sit every night and I wonder, like, how do we get to this point? Why are we at this point? It makes no sense. Our lives have been turned upside down with this. None of our lives are the same. We would love to be at home with our families. School is about to start. We would like to sit down to dinner with our families. But because we live in a city where we are not valued as black and brown people, I mean, just call a spade a spade. We are not valued. Our children are valued. I'm not gonna have my grandkids look at me and say, Grandma, what did you do? What did you do? And me be able to look at that child and say, I didn't do anything. I'm gonna tell my grandkids, I did everything. I did everything. I went to jail. I sat and I was hungry. I did everything. I slept at the church, you know, with my allies. I did everything I could do to make sure that you were properly educated. So, I'm sorry I get a little full about this issue. But it's time for Rahm to take his hands off our children. They're making money off the backs of our children. It's not right, it's not fair. You know, and we're tired of begging. We're not gonna beg anymore. We're demanding. This is our school, this is our community. Take your hands off of it. It's ours.
Very soulful words, my sister April. And she raises a really important question that we'll have to all ask ourselves is, where were you when they closed your children's school? What were you willing to do? Were you willing to go hungry? Were you willing to go to jail? Were you willing to go arrested for that education that we believe transforms lives and transforms the lives of young people? So next up with the statement is Judith Brown, co-executive director of the Advancement Project.
Thank you. Again, my name is Judith Brown Dianis, and I'm co-director of Advancement Project. We are a national racial justice organization with offices in DC and California. On behalf of Advancement Project, we are honored to stand with the Dyett 12. We have been honored to be supporting them in this fight to not only save Dyett, but to save public schools. To take this kind of step to be able to save your community and schools is significant. Why should communities and parents and loved ones and allies have to engage in a hunger strike to get good education? Why do people have to take these courageous steps? Across the country, this is happening. We are seeing schools being closed and communities being devastated by that. We're seeing disinvestment in schools, the closing of schools, and in communities that are already marginalized and kept at the fray, schools tend to be the most important jewel of those communities. As documented in a report by the Journey for Justice Alliance, which is headed up by G2 Brown, who is here, Death by 1,000 Cuts, in that report details what is happening across the country. There's also a new report out by Eros, Out of Control, that again documents that what we are finding is a stripping of democracy, that too many communities are finding that they have no say. And while we often say that parents of color and poor parents don't want to be involved in the education of their children, here we have communities who are standing up saying we want to control our community schools. We want to have a say, yet they are getting no response. Their mayor is in fact not only not responding to them, but responding by making sure that he can close every public school available to him, selling it off to the highest bidder, selling off public property for now private good instead of public good. So here we have parents who are standing up against this. What we are seeing across the country and why we're here in front of this particular building, Department of Education, is that we are seeing a dismantling of public education. We can't just say this is about Dyett. Dyett is actually a symbol of what is happening across the country. We disinvest from schools, then we say they're failing schools, and then we close them down because they're failing, all with the pretext of turning over our schools to corporate interests. And so we're seeing it in Chicago, we're seeing it in Baltimore, we're seeing it right here in the District of Columbia, we're seeing it in New York. Everywhere, public education is being dismantled. Just one block over, the Department of Housing and Urban Development dismantled public housing. Now this building is standing with those who are actually dismantling public education. But the folks in this building, the Secretary of Education, Department of Education, has an opportunity to do something different. To stand with communities who want to see good public schools in their communities. We filed on behalf of Journey for Justice Alliance in May of 2014, Advancement Project filed 3 Title VI complaints, which are civil rights discrimination complaints on behalf of parents at Dyett and Mollison in Chicago, on behalf of parents in New Orleans, and on behalf of parents in Newark. And we're calling on the Department of Education to step up, because right now we're in a waiting period. We haven't really heard. There's no resolution. As far as I know, this administration is up pretty soon. We're on the clock. But not only are we on the clock with this administration, we're on the clock with our children. And so what we're asking is for the Department of Education to step up and save public education for all children, so that all children are entitled to the great education that Malia and Sasha are getting. We want everyone to have that opportunity. We don't want it to be privatized. We don't want it to be taken over. The people want to have a say. This isn't about handouts. People pay for education, public education, with our tax dollars, and we want to be able to control our schools and our future.
Thank you, Judith. So absolutely, by international standard and principle of democracy, parents and students have a right to participate in the decision-making regarding their education, and when they aren't happening, when it isn't happening, it's a violation of their rights. And that's why we're here today again calling on the Department of Ed and President Obama to protect public education and protect the rights of parents and students to be active agents and voices in their own education. And so we're going to bring up Lily Garcia, President of the NEA. Welcome, Lily.
I am so honored. I am so honored to just be in the presence of these brave parents, grandparents. This is a city that's built on power. And there is nothing more powerful than a community fighting for its children. There is nothing more powerful than a community who has a plan for its children. And this community has a plan. They have a plan, and unlike any of the other plans, it involves the whole community. You didn't put this together just sitting in a little room making things up. You talked to the parents, you talked to people that didn't even have kids in that school. You said, what do you want from your community? This was an anchor for your community. You talked to kids, and you said, what is it that would bring you back to this school? What would make you proud to go to this school? And you took all of that, the heart and soul of your community, and you came up with a plan put together with some of the most prestigious names at universities, saying, here's what will make this place a place that grows leaders, a place that cares about the children's future as much as it cares about the future of the community and the future of the world. That is an amazing gift that you have given. And it's not lost on any of us, the sacrifice that you're pursuing. It's the same sacrifice that someone like Cesar Chavez made when he needed to get the attention of the rest of the world about the injustice that was happening to communities that excluded borders. And sometimes you have to put your own health on the line to get the attention of the world as they say, why would you do something crazy like not eating? That's insane. Why? But at least they ask the question and you can tell them why. And so something like this has a point. And the point is, we want to save the lives of your children. We want to save the life of that community. And what I love about real community power, you're not whining that the world is not fair. It's true, the world is not fair. And you're doing something about it. You're organizing, you're planning, you're committing, you're collecting hearts and minds. and you're sacrificing just so you can bring people together and make something else. I have visited hundreds of schools across the country as president of the National Education Association and a sixth grade teacher from Utah. And I always ask them, take me to a school that no one thought could improve. And something happened, and all of a sudden you see parents feeling welcome. All of a sudden you see kids excited to come to school. All of a sudden you see the educators, the teachers and support staff, the administrator in that building with a new sense of purpose. Every single time. They're doing something different. But every time it's because the plan came from the community. It's not because you bought it. It didn't come from a textbook. It wasn't one more test and punish. It was a plan where you asked the community, what does success look like? And you built around the kids. You built around the students. You know, we always send something like a little press release out for inviting me to be here. And mine has something that people go, that's not true. Because it starts, the press release says that I'm here with you, and I'm humble. And anyone who knows me knows I'm not humble. I'm so proud of being a teacher. I'm so proud of my union. I'm so proud of the work we're doing. But I am humble. I'm humble to be in your presence. I am in awe of the sacrifice you're making. And because of what you have put on the line, people are paying attention. People are asking tough questions. And when they don't like the answers, they're going to turn to you. And they're going to ask for your answers. And you have everything. You are going to go fight with no fight now. Thank you very much.
So absolutely, Dyett represents the hopes and dreams of a community, and it's a vision that was rooted in community. Part of their struggle, or part of their process, they engaged over 3,000 residents in the planning and the design of Dyett Global Leadership High School. So this is really that vision of a community. And when we begin to understand the history of Chicago and school closings and why this fight is important, I have to raise the name of Urian Alberts, who was the young man who was shot and killed as a result of school closings, where he was sent to across the neighborhood, and there was an incident that led to his death. We also want to raise the name of LaPortia Massey, the middle schooler who died in Philadelphia as a result of school closures and school cuts in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And that's part why this hunger strike is important, because parents have had enough of seeing their young people die as a result of these education policies and cuts. And so we're going to bring up John Jackson, the president of the Shop Foundation for Public Education, for the Solidarity Statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is John Jackson, president of the Shop Foundation for Public Education. We are very supportive of parents in Chicago, April, G2, supportive of our grantees who are working toward providing all students an opportunity to learn. Now, I know that there are some who would say, why do we bring such a local issue to Washington, D.C.? But we recognize that the only thing that makes our collection of states a united state is the belief that there is a federal system, that when local politicians avoid justice, that the federal government will come in and bring justice. There's a precedent for this. In 1954, when parents and students were hungry for justice in Topeka, Kansas, in Washington, D.C., in Wilmington, Delaware, the Supreme Court in Brown versus Board of Education said that we will stand behind desegregated schools. We will bring justice. In 1956, when 9 students wanted to attend Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Daisy Bates sent the message that the students were hungry for justice, President Dwight Eisenhower federalized the Arkansas National Guard so that those students could attend Central High School. So we're here today because April, because G2, because parents in Chicago are saying that the students in Chicago are hungry. The students at Dyett are hungry for justice. And we're asking President Obama, we're asking Secretary Duncan to set the table so that our students can eat, not only in Chicago, not only in Philadelphia, but across the country. Because we believe that across the country, regardless of where a student is born, that all students should have access to a fair and substantive opportunity to learn. And in this case, when we find out that local politicians like Mayor Emanuel is not delivering and serving justice, it is the responsibility of our federal government. It is the responsibility of our Secretary of Education. It is the responsibility of our President to ensure that justice is served for our children, for our parents, and that all students have a fair and substantive opportunity to learn. And at the Shaw Foundation, we're going to stand with students, we're going to stand with parents, we're going to stand with communities until justice is served. Thank you.
So very quickly, we want to bring up Marty Blank, who is the Executive Director for the Coalition for Community Schools with Solidarity State.
It's an honor to be here. I'm Marty Blank, Executive Director of the Coalition for Community Schools. We believe that fundamentally schools have to be centers of flourishing communities where everyone belongs, everyone works together, and everyone thrives. And you know, that's a very American, a very simple American proposition. We put schools on the prairies, and we gambled in them, we danced in them, we voted in them, we did everything in them. They were pivotal institutions in our community, and that's what the Dyett people are asking for. And that's what a man named Julius Rosenwald understood 100 years ago. He was the CEO of Sears Roebuck in Chicago, and he opened 5,300 schools in the South. He didn't just send the money to some company to build the schools. He said to the community, you have to raise a share of this money. And we're talking about the 10s and the 20s. So raising money in those poor rural African American communities was no small task, but people stepped up and they went to church on Sunday and everyone was involved in the school the rest of the week because they understood that this is a fundamental institution in American democracy. And that's what these extraordinarily courageous people at the Dyett are fighting for. And it's a struggle throughout American history. It may not be too big a stretch to say that these people are fighting just as our forefathers fought for the revolution to create an American democracy. We have to continue this struggle and stand with people who care about their communities. They have been disinvested, and when we steal the schools, and when the schools we put back say, oh no, we don't have any relationship to the community. Well, the kids come from everywhere, you know, it's all about the students. That's not the theory that exists all across America in suburban and middle class and other places. Schools are rooted in their communities and people have a voice. We need to continue to struggle so that the residents at Dyett and people all across the country get heard. And if we need the Secretary and the President to help bring people to the table, to listen to their voices in a serious way and be responsive, then I would ask them to do that. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, Marty, for your words. Absolutely. Stealing a school or closing a school should be considered un-American, I think, at this point, in an act of treason. Again, we call on Secretary Duncan and President Obama to intervene to save Dyett High School. With a message from the American Federation of Teachers, we have the President, Randy Weingard. Welcome, Randy.
So, as everyone is speaking, I was trying to figure out what to say that hasn't been said yet. In every single day that these hunger strikers have been striking in Chicago, and people, clergy, and elected officials, and parents, and unionists, and doctors have come to support them. The 700 people that went to a Chicago budget hearing coming to support them. What can we say that hasn't been said? And this is what struck me. Say you just landed here on this plaza knowing nothing about this situation and heard the following three facts. Number one, that since 2001, Chicago public schools have closed or converted to charters or selective enrollment about 20 schools near Dyett. And then between 2005 and 2010, 4 high schools on the south side near Dyett were closed. So that essentially there are no open enrollment public high schools in the Brownsville community, as April just said. So say you heard that. And then you heard that there were parents who worked for several years to put an amazing proposal together, a proposal that Jeannie Oakes, the president of the American Education Research Association, has called outstanding. And we can give you the letter that Jeannie has put together. Someone who has spent years looking at schools and what the components of good schooling are. And then you heard that the former superintendent of the Chicago schools put a process together, and that these same parents actually applied for the school using this outstanding plan, and the other 2 proposals are totally, completely inferior by everyone's account. If you heard all that, and you saw that these parents and this community can still not get a school in a place that really needs a public school, where they want to take responsibility for our children's education, and where in anywhere else in the country, if that happened, we would say hallelujah. What is going on in Chicago? And then one understands why. A few days before a decision was going to be made, where everyone in Chicago believed that this decision would go against these parents, this hunger strike for justice started. This is a hunger strike for justice, for our kids, for our democracy, for a community that wants one thing: to assure that our kids get a decent education. And that's why these 2 folks are here in Washington today. Because when a local leader, Democrat or Republican, refuses to listen to community, refuses to act in the best interest of community, there is no place to turn but the federal government. And that's why they are here, appealing to the former chancellor of the schools of Chicago, to a chancellor of the schools of Chicago that actually did end a hunger strike and did create a school. They're appealing to the president, who comes from Chicago, who lives in that neighborhood. If we believe in justice, if we believe in our children, this is a good plan that needs to be adopted for the kids in Chicago. My union will stand with our parents and our members and everyone who does anything in their power to try and fight for Dyett. Thank you.
Powerful words. So, last but not least, we want to welcome G2 Brown, hunger striker and director of Journey for Justice. Amongst the young people, we call him the juggernaut. He's a big presence and means so much to us, and it hurts us, and it hurts young people to see their parents actually having to sacrifice themselves and put themselves before death for education. But I think they're clear about the importance of the cause and the importance of them. And so there's a lot of love for G2 across the nation. I want to bring solidarity and support from the Alliance, our 28 organizations, and the thousands of young people that we organize with, that we love being here to support. And we are Dyett. So without any further delay, let's bring up G2 Brown.
So sort of like Randy, I was thinking, well, what hasn't been said? First, we'd just like to express our sincere gratitude to all the brothers and sisters that have come out today to lend their support. It means, we say every time we get a supportive word, it's like a sandwich. So we appreciate that. I'm reminded of a quote from the great poet and author Alice Walker, who said, "No one is your friend who demands your silence or denies your right to grow. And we're here on this hunger strike because we've been rendered voiceless. Bronzeville is one of the most proudest African American communities in this country. It was one of the main destinations for African Americans when we fled the South in the 20th century. This is the neighborhood that gave the world Richard Wright, it gave the world Harold Washington, Sam Cooke, gave the world Dr. Daniel Hill Williams. Ida B. Wells lived about a mile and a half from Dyett, Minnie Riperton. This is a proud community that has made huge contributions to American life, but we have been disinvested in. As Randy mentioned, when schools started closing in Chicago, the Bronzeville community was targeted, although there were 17 other neighborhoods with lower test scores. Bronzeville was targeted because we are 10 minutes from downtown Chicago, right off the lakefront. And so there was a serious effort to remove the families that have history in that community and bring in a gentry that the city of Chicago felt was more attractive. I want to tell you all a story. I've been on the local school council at Dyett since 2003. In 2008, Dyett had the largest increase of students going to college in all of Chicago public schools. We had a nationally recognized restorative justice program. Our young people trained adults and youth around the country in restorative justice. For 2 years straight, we had the largest decrease in arrests and suspensions in all of Chicago public schools. In 2011, we won the ESPN Rise Up Award. We beat out 425 schools around the country. As they said, this was a small school that had amazing things happening but needed support. So the question you would ask yourself is, what happened? Rahm Emanuel happened. Barbara Byrd Bennett happened. John Claude Brazard happened. And the disinvestment in Dyett High School was criminal. The programs and initiatives that the community, along with our principal, Jacqueline Lemon, put in place was systemically snatched from the school despite the fact there was no decrease in enrollment. We lost our AVID program. We lost our Life After Dyett class. We lost our art classes. We lost 2 African-American teachers. We lost the Afro-American History Club. We lost the Love Female Mentorship Program. We lost the Intelligent Young Men of Dyett, Voices of Youth in Chicago Education. All of these programs were snatched from Chicago public schools, citing budget difficulties. They killed Dyett High School. And before that, since 2009, in absence of a vision from Chicago public schools, I want to say in absence of a vision, you know, some communities take for granted. You go in Lincoln Park and a parent knows kindergarten through 12th grade what's going to happen with their child. They can walk down the street, they can push their babies in wagons and walk down the street to world-class neighborhood schools where young people are learning Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, and Spanish, where every teacher has a teacher aide. And then you go in the Bronzeville community and you look at Mollison Elementary School that had 6 straight years of improved test scores, but no librarian. A school so crowded that children are getting their special ed services under the stairs. A school so disrupted that they had, in 2013, there were 53 kindergartners in one classroom. And this is happening on our watch. So we've done everything that you can do. We've jumped through every hoop. We've met with every bureaucrat. We've met with every import who destabilizes our schools and then gets promoted to do it. And we got to a place where when they canceled that hearing on August the 10th, we were tired. We realized that unfortunately they don't have our children's best interests at heart. And so we had developed a plan, not just for Dyett High School, but Dyett Global Leadership and Green Technology High School as the hub of a sustainable community school village. As was stated before, we had over 3,000 petition signatures. We held 6 town hall meetings, attracting about 1,800 people. We had 578 people in Bronzeville mail letters to the mayor saying they wanted this school. There were 2 youth speak-outs where young people at the feeder school said they wanted this school. But yet our voices were ignored because of patronage in politics. And we are at a place where we can't take that anymore. We can't look our children in the face and say we haven't done everything possible for you to be able to stand on our shoulders. 49 years old. I grew up in the ghetto, but I went to an excellent neighborhood school down the street from my house. I have a 6-year-old son. My son doesn't deserve the same right that I had. My child gets a worse education than I got 30-some odd years ago. So we are appealing to Secretary Arne Duncan, who we know very well. And Secretary Duncan actually stopped closing schools in Bronzeville after the community mobilized and showed him that we cared about those schools. He stopped closing schools in Bronzeville. Dyett High School sits 4 blocks from our president's home. Our president has spoken at Dyett High School. This school is the hub of our community. Right now, we have no open enrollment neighborhood high school. We have lost the choice of having a neighborhood school. We don't have that choice. We are forced into a situation where we have to send our children to privatizers who operate horrible schools in Bronzeville, and that is not a choice that we're prepared to take. We demand Walter Dyett Global Leadership and Green Technology High School. We are not trying to be any bigger than we are. We met with Mayor Rahm Emanuel Monday night, and I told him directly, you should feel refreshed that nobody's asking you for a contract. That we don't want to run a charter school. We don't want to run a contract school. We want CPS to do their job. Just like they provide world-class schools in other communities, provide them in Bronzeville, unless you're saying it's something wrong with our children. If it's something wrong with our children, man up and say that, and then we'll know who we're dealing with. But if it's nothing wrong with our children, the issue is equity. And we demand equity. We demand equity. And so we will be on this hunger strike until we win Walter Dyett Global Leadership and Green Technology High School. I want to thank everybody for all of their support. It's been overwhelming around the world. We've had haters. We've had people, we've had disruptors come to our site and challenge us. We've had people taking pictures of us out there. But at the end of the day, we're the people directly impacted, and we have a right to stand up for our children. So thank you very much. Oh, and if you support this fight, we have t-shirts that you can wear for $19.99. No, I'm kidding. They're free. You all can wear them if you like. Thank you very much.
All right, so we wanted to take the next couple minutes to any questions from the press.
Trying to get on tape. Come on, Freeman React Radio. What is the establishment's justification for this entire process?
Their justification is that there's a new board, there's a new administration, they just brought in a new CEO, give them time, but then they began to flip the story and say, well, there are too many high schools in the area. So our young people did a press conference and gave the truth about what's available in the area. So they've gone from, and then when we met with them Monday night, they were back to give us some more time. But our counter to that is, well, you never stop the public hearings to get new charter schools in the city. Those are still going on. They're done by these manufactured groups called Neighborhood Action Councils, and Noble Street Charter School, Uno Charter School, Intrinsic Charter Schools. All of these charter school chains are going in communities that are not asking for these schools, and they're going before these fake boards to get approval to open new charter schools in those areas. One thing I like to add is, in the community of Rogers Park, which is a middle-class white community in Bronzeville, Noble Street, which is one of Rahm Emanuel's favorites, was trying to move a charter school, believe it or not, in this middle-class white community. The parents went to 2 meetings, and in 2 meetings, that deal was off the table. The Board of Education responded. We have been doing genuine community input for 5.5 years. And we had to do sit-ins and get arrested and start a hunger strike to get the mayor to the table the other night.
I'm going to speak on the subject, and it is not the policy of what's your next step? Trying to decide what they're not going to do.
Well, that might be your assessment, but
I'm sorry.
no, that may be your assessment. But we are going to talk with Secretary Duncan.
No, you're not today.
I'm sorry?
You think you're talking to Secretary Duncan?
We're talking to someone. We're going to do our best to talk to Secretary Duncan. We're going to talk to someone in the US Department of Education.
Right, you're going to talk to some senior officials here today.
Yes, ma'am. And we're going to make a request. That's all we can do. We can't control what the Secretary would do. And so my answer to your question is that we will also seek to talk to the White House, and we'll make that effort. And then if that doesn't work, we will continue our hunger strike.
Okay, so you're here already. You just don't get these things in the last minute. Who are you going to, have you done anything to work it for a meeting with anyone at the White House? So
We are working on it. We are working on it.
What's the status? No, I want to,
No, it's fine. We're in process. We're in process.
Your process of getting a meeting with the White House.
That's what we're working on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so.
And if I could just add also the federal government should be involved because there's a pending federal investigation that should be going on.
Well, I'm not arguing the point. I just am here saying that I understand you're not going to get anything with Duncan. You're here, but you don't have any insight into the White House on this visit. So then what would be, and these, you can't, is your whole strategy counting on getting something from this visit? You must be going to demand. Or if someone else.
I would just say that we're doing our best to make sure that the world knows what's happening here. That at the end of the day, why do taxpayers have to starve themselves to have a voice? And I think that should be the story. That should be the story. That parents in other communities, I would say one last thing. In the Hyde Park community, you may be familiar with this. Kenwood Academy was overcrowded. When the parents in Hyde Park, predominantly white middle-class parents, said that they wanted Cantor Middle School to relieve the overcrowding in Kenwood, there was no RFP. They didn't have to do any sit-ins, they didn't have to do any protests. In 2 months, they had the building. So what we're trying to get people to see, honestly, is that there is a situation separate and unequal. And none of us should be comfortable with that.
So do you think Forrest is going to help you out at all?
I don't know Forrest Claiborne. I would say this, that we are committed to this process. I'm not a mind reader, I'm not a fortune teller. What I can tell you is that we're fiercely committed. We are not playing. And we are, at some point, when you look people in the eye walking down the street of your neighborhood, you have to ask yourself, what have you done?
Okay,
So, no, I need you to hear me. What have you done to make sure that those children have a world-class education? So this struggle, I can't predict what's going to happen with this, but I can say that this is structural racism at its worst. I can say that. And I should say that why should we be sitting here starving for 17 days having to get on an airplane to come to Washington, D.C. because the mayor of our city in a supposed democracy just refuses to hear our voice. But he will sell our schools to he will sell our schools to people that actually make profit off of implementing public education exclusively to black and brown children. That should be a story.
So
And that's
most of the time, I'll just say that these folks have been on a hunger strike for several days, 2 weeks now. And from the beginning, there was almost no attention paid in Chicago. Now all of Chicago is watching. The nation needs to know about this. When you try to get the nation to know something, you come to Washington, D.C. That's the seat of our national democracy. The Department of Education, President of the United States, they have a connection to Chicago. They understand Chicago. And the Department of Education has lots of authority through the issues of equity as well as the issues of just plain justice. And look, all of you are here. This story needs to be told. And these two brave people have got on a plane after not eating for days upon days after days, even though you have to have all the protein drinks to actually tell this story. That's how progress gets made. Just one, I have, just for, I
there might be other people who want to ask
I
questions.
have one. Is there other reporters? If not, I just have one follow-up, and then I'll let my colleagues ask questions. What is the closest open enrollment public high school?
The closest open enrollment public high school. You have Kenwood Academy.
That's the closest.
But yes, and Kenwood Academy is not that far, but it's not in the district. It's not in Dyett's attendance area. And Kenwood, in addition to being open enrollment, also takes citywide applications. I'm an alumni of Kenwood, but Kenwood is also overcrowded. So there's a company called the Academy of Urban School Leadership that runs Phillips High School. You may remember that when Phillips was closed in 2009, there were 1,700 students. Now there are about 502 students because they use notorious push-out policies. And a lot of parents don't send their children to Phillips because it's very dangerous from 51st Street to 39th Street.
I just want to know what public school open enrollment answer is.
And I also think we have to stop categorizing these situations as local issues. They're not local issues in the sense that there's food in the city of Chicago. In Rogers Park, the students are eating. There's food in the state. In Bolingbrook, the students are eating. Why is it that the students on the south side of Chicago are only being offered a crust of bread in the corner to sleep in? That's not a local issue. That's a justice issue that the federal government has a responsibility to address.
All right, we have time for one more question because we do have to go to a transition to another meeting. So is there anyone else that has a question to ask any of the hunger striker or any of our lineup?
What do you want from Arne Duncan?
We would hope that Arne Duncan would make a phone call. We would hope that Arne Duncan would understand that communities have a right to have an impact and to have voice in what happens with the children's education. So we hope that Secretary Duncan may give the mayor a call. We would hope that Secretary Duncan may, even say something publicly in support of our right to this school. I mean, so that's what we hope for right now.
We want to thank everyone. We want to thank our two hunger strikers and our panelists. Again, for those who can follow along, you can follow along the hashtag #FightForDyett. That's fight FOR Dyett, and also the hashtag WeAreDyett. So again, thank you all for coming out, and that's the end of the press conference.